Yamanaste Tapo Diptaha Manyavaha Mukyato Vayum Agnim Cha Sarijus Tad Dihaksaya Drumebhya Krudyamanaste Tapo Dipita Manyavaha Mukyato Vayum Agnim Cha Sasrajus Tad Dighaksaya Drumabhyat Krudyamanaste Tapo Dipita Manyavaha Mukyato Vayum Agnim Cha Sarujusta Didaksayaha Ladies? Mm-hmm. Drumebhya, unto the trees, Krudyamana yana, Krudyamana, being very angry. Te, they, the 10 sons of Prachina Barhi. Tapa Dipita Manyavaha, whose anger was inflamed because of long austerities. Mukata, from the mouth. Vayum, wind. Agnim, fire. Cha, and. Sasruju, they created. Tat, those forests. Didaksaya, with a desire to burn. Okay. So the Prachetas are now seeing that the earth is full of trees, and they became angry because no one was managing the earth. So they saw the trees as being an obstacle in the development of culture and society. So now they're acting. Because of having undergone long austerities in the water, the Prachetas were very angry at the trees, designed to burn them to ashes. They generated wind and fire from their mouths. Please repeat. Because of having undergone long austerities, In the water, the Prachetas were very angry at the trees, desiring to burn them to ashes. They generated fire and wind from their mouths. Purport. Here the word tapo dipita manyava indicates that persons who have undergone severe austerities, tapasya, are endowed with great mystic power, as evinced by the Prachetas, who created fire and wind from their mouths. Although devotees undergo severe tapasya, however, they are vimanyavaha, sadhava, which means that they are never angry. They are always decorated with good qualities. Srimad Bhagavatam 3:25-21 states, Titiksava karunika suhridam sahadevinam ajata shatrava santa sarava sarubhushanaha. A sadhu, a devotee, is never angry. Actually, the real feature of the devotees who undergo tapasya, austerity, is forgiveness. Although a Vaishnava has sufficient power in tapasya, he does not become angry when put into difficulty. If one undergoes tapasya but does not become a Vaishnava, however, one does not develop good qualities. For example, Hiranyakashipu and Ravana also performed great austerities, but they did so to demonstrate the demoniac tendencies. Vaishnavas must meet many opponents while preaching the glories of the Lord, but Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recommends that they not become angry while preaching. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given this formula, Trinadapi Sunichena Tayoripi Sahishnuna Amaninam Amanadenam Kirtaniya Sadarahi. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw of the street. One should be more tolerant than the tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respects to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. Those engaged in preaching the glories of the Lord should be humbler than the grass and more tolerant than a tree. Then they can preach the glories of the Lord without difficulty. Om Gyan Chimirandasya Gyanajana Silakaya Chaksun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Staptitam Yena Bhutile Swayam Rupa Kadam Mayam Dadati Swam Padantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So one can use lust, anger, greed, illusion, and even pride in the service of the Lord, and when under certain conditions, but not in all conditions. One has to make that discrimination. Sometimes we see the spiritual master will get angry at a foolish disciple. But that's for the benefit of the disciple, so they know they get a little rectification, a little bit of strong direction, and that helps them to realize the importance of the instruction that has been given. But one should avoid anger, because they say anger is the younger brother of desire. When desire is not fulfilled, then anger may appear, or may not, but it says it does appear many times when one's desire is frustrated. So one should be very careful, especially in the process of preaching Krishna consciousness. Trying to preach Krishna consciousness is very difficult in this age of Kali, because people are not able to understand this knowledge, and at the same time they're very much attached to their material life. And so to reach somebody with this message, really, it takes a lot of time and effort and a great amount of thought on how to bring it about. And even though sometimes we do that, we still find that people can't understand. So sometimes the devotees get angry. When Bhaktisiddhanta sent his preachers to the different countries overseas, such as London and Germany and Myanmar, where else? A few, I think they also might have went to France too. He told them, the only way you'll be able to have any effect is you have to wear this sloka around your neck and wear it as your ornament. Trinadapi sunichena tayori vasa hishnuna maninam amanadena kirtanaya sadarahi. As peoples in the Western countries are very difficult to reach with this knowledge because they're so covered over by material desire. So one has to practice humility, and by practicing humility, people will become more attracted to what you have to say. And that is one of the means by which people hear. When someone is acting humbly or is actually humble, there is a message that is more easily received by those who are listening. Well, when anger or what we say arrogance comes when preaching, then it kind of like pollutes the message. Sometimes it can be used in certain cases, but not in most cases. Therefore, one has to practice this quality of humility, tolerance, pridelessness, and respect for others, because that attracts the mercy of Krishna, and it allows one to stay fixed in the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. One cannot approach either the Supreme Lord or his representative unless one is developing or practicing that quality. What does humility actually mean? It's not a state of inertia. It's not a state of ignorance. It's a state of receptivity, that I am dependent on the mercy of my spiritual master. I am dependent on the mercy of the Lord in every case, in all cases, in whatever I do, whether I am, going about my daily activities or whether I'm doing an important service for preaching. This humility is it means to depend always on the mercy of the Lord. And sometimes we say that humility means, I'm nothing, but you are everything. And that empowers one to do wonderful things, because the empowerment comes from the outside, not from one's own efforts. So humility attracts the mercy of the Lord, and attracts the mercy of people in general. Even in the material world, when someone is genuinely humble, they also become attractive. But sometimes people mistake humility by inertia, not doing things. They seem like it's kind of like causes one to become less active. But you see Srila Prabhupada, how he demonstrated the qualities of a Vaishnava by being very enthusiastic and absorbed in spreading Krishna consciousness. But he would always say, whatever I am doing is simply because I know Krishna is there in the background. In other words, the great soul may act very enthusiastically, but in the back of their mind and in their heart, they know, it's not me. It's the mercy of the Lord that allows me to go on with my service. And therefore, I want more and more mercy. But if one is thinking, well, I have so many good qualities, I can memorize slokas, I can lead kirtans, I can speak the philosophy, I can cook very nicely. In other words, if one starts to give someone their credit for whatever qualities that Krishna gives them, and then that becomes a sense of pride, and that blocks Krishna's mercy. And if that continues in that way, then that person will actually fall down in devotional service. As they say in the Christian tradition, pride cometh before the fall. So one has to always remember that one is dependent always on the mercy of the spiritual master, on the association of the Vaishnavas, on the kindness of the Lord coming through the different his different energies. And then one can do great things. Mukhan karoti vachalam pangula gate girim yat kripa taraham bande sigurundina tarinam. That these characteristics that are developed by a devotee are all due to his qualities of humility and tolerance, pridelessness, and not wanting respect for oneself. The Bhagavad Gita says, humility means one he's averse to hearing about being glorified. One is not interested, nor does one like to be glorified. That's a quality of a humble devotee. Not like a showy thing, like, well, you act like you don't like it, but then you're thinking, well, yeah, it's really nice. and Krishna knows your heart. And a devotee who does so many activities in devotional service and spreads Krishna consciousness, or does some wonderful service, building temples, or even cooking nice prasadam for the devotees, or whatever, they don't take credit for that, because they know it's the mercy of the Lord. I had another point I was going to make. Trying to think. Can't think of that point. It was a good point. Old age. Hare Krishna. So yeah, one who is acting in that way knows that it is, what is that verse? It's in the Bhagavad Gita, 6th chapter. One who sees me and everything in me was never lost to me, and I am never lost to them. Very good. Thank you. In that verse, one sees Krishna in everything, in success or in apparent failure. Of course, you can't fail in devotional service. The only way you can fail in devotional service is if you give up, then you fail. But even if you somehow or other fall down due to some, lack of experience, or just by some mistake or something, still it doesn't disqualify one. Or even if one, as it says, apitet chudarajaro bhajate mama manyaba sadhueva samanta bhyak vavyo vyahisa hisa samahi hisa. And even if one commits an offense or a sinful activity, if they somehow or other pick themselves up again, make proper apologies for the offense, and then go back in devotional service, then there's no loss. There's no loss. because devotional service is like a blazing fire. It can burn to ashes all the reactions of all sinful activities that one commits for millions of lifetimes, provided one stays fixed in the process of devotional service. So in this verse is on the platform of Nishta. The process of devotional service is Adao Shraddha Sadhu Sangha Bhajana Kriya Anartha Nivriti. And Nishta, this verse is on Nishta. Just like in the Chaitanya Shikshastakam, in the first verse, the Lord mentions the 9 benedictions that one gets. In the second verse, he simply dispenses with all rules and regulations. But then at the end, he says, because I commit offenses, I have no taste for chanting. And then this verse follows that if one practices this, one can be freed from all of the offenses, and one can be fixed in devotional service. Sometimes devotees ask how to become fixed in devotional service. The steadiness is not so much in your service, it's in developing the qualities of a devotee. That is the steadiness. That is the nishta. That I stay fixed in the mood of executing devotional service. I cultivate these qualities of humility, tolerance, patience, pridelessness, respect for others, undisturbed in happiness and distress. And these are the qualities, as we cultivate them, then one becomes steady. And when that one becomes steady in that way, one develops attraction for Krishna in the process, and then one becomes fixed in Krishna consciousness. Fixed means that despite whatever difficulties may encounter, or even apparent failures in devotional service, as we mentioned, you can't fail, but sometimes we look at the results as success and failure. But there's no such thing, because the results are not up to us, it's up to Krishna. So whatever results come by sincere endeavor in Krishna consciousness, that's bhakti. And that advances a devotee along the path of bhakti. So cultivating these qualities, and especially in the preaching arena, where there are so many opportunities to become disturbed by the external environment, or by people who are influenced by the external environment. So one has to be very, very tolerant. That's why Lord Chaitanya said, this verse is the most important of all verses. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it says, string this verse on the necklace of your holy name and wear it as your ornament. So this is the ornament of a devotee, these qualities here. But sometimes people think that just like devotees came up with a definition of humility, it's like not to think less of yourself, but to think of yourself less. Not to think less of yourself, but to think of yourself less. In other words, focus more on the activities. People who are always thinking about themselves, they develop this ego, that everything centers around me. But we have to take care of our, needs and practice the proper mood. At the same time, we focus on the activity. And as we focus on the activity, then the qualities blended with the service develops the activity in a pleasing way. In other words, it becomes offerable to Krishna. So we have to practice that. There was one story in the Chaitanya Charitamrita where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was traveling in South India. He came to the place of Kurmashetra. And there was one particular leper. His name was Vasudeva. And Vasudeva's leprosy was so bad that he had to remain alone. His body was full of leprosy. But Vasudeva was a devotee of the Lord. And he very much was always thinking about praying to the Lord glorifying the Lord. Now he was there and he had heard that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Lord, was coming to Kurukshetra. So he knew because of his condition he could not associate with the Lord. But he thought, I just want to see the Lord. That's all. Now it describes his qualities, that his body was full of sores, and in the sores there were worms living in his body. And one of the worms, any one time that a worm would fall onto the ground, he would pick it up and put it back to where it was in his body, because he thought, God has given my body as a home for this worm, so it belongs there. That was his humility. So now he wanted to see Mahaprabhu, but Mahaprabhu didn't spend much time in Kurukshetra. He spent about 4 days, and he kept going. When Vasudeva realized that he hadn't seen the Lord and the Lord had already gone, he was lamenting his fate. He was thinking, oh, how unfortunate I am, how sinful I am. I only wanted to see the Lord and I never got to see him. Now, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we all know, he's the indwelling supersoul in the heart of all living beings. So he understood the mind of Vasudeva and he came back. And he went right to the place where Vasudeva was. When he saw Vasudeva, he immediately ran to Vasudeva and embraced him. And as soon as he embraced him, his entire body became completely healed. All his disease, all the leprosy was gone. His body was whole and strong again. And of course, Vasudeva wasn't so happy about this, because his body was touching the body of the Lord, and he was thinking, oh my God, this is horrible. But the Lord is strong. If he grabs you, you can't get away, It's like, Mahaprabhu is he's the source of all power. And so then the Lord looked at Vasudeva and said, Vasudeva, you don't look happy. Vasudeva said, no, I'm not happy. Then you would think, why wasn't he happy? And then he explained. He said, my dear Lord, people will now see me like this, and they'll know that you have shown your special mercy on me, and then I will become proud. And if I become proud, that is worse than death. And the Lord said something which is very instructive to all of us. He said, do one thing and you'll never become proud. He said, incessantly chant the HareKrishna Mahamantra. In other words, chant always Hare. He said, if you do that, you'll never become proud. So that's not an easy, formula, but it is the formula for pride. As soon as we forget the Lord, or as soon as we start to focus on our own qualities, we can develop this sense of, it may be something small, but if it becomes more, then we start thinking, well, I gave that good class the other day, everybody said it was nice. Or I was out distributing books and I was the best of all the devotees. It's like there was one particular incident in the life of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. One of his leading sannyasis went out to preach. And he went to this huge Pandal program where there are thousands of people there. And he preached in such a way that people got up from their seats and just start clapping and clapping. They didn't stop. He gave such a powerful lecture that it was like everyone was so happy and amazed. They were just clapping and clapping and clapping. And then he came back and he was thinking, I should reward myself by getting some extra nice prasadam. He was thinking, that's the only thing. He wanted some special prasadam that day. Oh, yeah, I gave a nice lecture. I should get a little, extra prasadam if you're from The Western countries, you think maybe I'll find the best pizza maker. If you're here, you might want pav bhaji or something else. I don't know. I'm not sure what everybody likes, but huh? What else? Don't say it. And so when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati understood his mind and what he wanted, he said, who does he think he is? He's out there, he's preaching, it's a service. He's doing it as a service, and now he wants a reward. This is fruit of activity. This is karma kanda, this is not bhakti. And so, of course, when the sannyasi heard that his Guru Maharaj, Bhaktisiddhanta, had said that, he gave up his idea. But you see, sometimes we do something and it has great effect on others, and we think we want to reward ourselves, or somebody should reward ourselves. Just like if you're used to people saying Jai, and then somebody forgets to say Jai. What's wrong with you? Don't you know that all the rest of them are saying Jai? How about you? What happened? You forgot? You woke up on the wrong side of the bed this morning? So yeah, there's a danger of becoming glorified. Means that if it doesn't happen, you can also become a little disturbed. And that happens a lot, when you're used to. So one has to really understand that all glories to my spiritual master. All glories to the Vaishnavas. All glories to the mercy coming from my spiritual master, coming from the Lord. That way one can always remember that whatever I do, even if it's successful or whatever good qualities I may have, maybe I have them from birth, or maybe I've developed them, and simply they're gifts from Krishna, they're gifts also from the material energy. And it's not something that we somewhat take credit on, because the devotee knows that if Sarvasya hamriti sani visto matat smita jnanam apohanam cha, Krishna wants to give you remembrance. You can remember something. If he wants to make you forget something, you can't even remember who you are. I remember one time we were in a group, we were out preaching, and I was with a whole bunch of people. It was a hippie program, and we were out there. And then everybody had to go around and say their name. When it came to me, I gave the wrong name. I forgot my name. I said somebody else's name. I won't tell you who I said. And then I thought, that's not me. So then I realized Krishna was showing me, you fool, you think you know a lot. You can't even remember your own name. So Krishna can make you forget who you are, where you're. It's called amnesia. Sometimes people get hit on the head and they forget everything. There's one story when one man, he left his place of residence and went to a different country. And he forgot to take his identity with him, his papers. But he was there, and then he was walking along the ground, on the sidewalk, and he fell. He hit his head on the ground. People came to help him. When he woke up, he was unconscious for a while. He didn't know who he was. He didn't know where he was. He had no papers on him, and nobody could identify him. Nobody knew him. He was in a strange place. So now he was identityless. And so he decided, well, I'll just start life all over again. So he got a new wife, every day he started life all over again in middle age. And then after about 7 years, he fell again and hit his head, and he remembered who he was in the previous time before he fell the first time. And so this is the state of consciousness of the living entity in the material world. We have amnesia. We forget who we are. We think we're this body, or we're thinking we're Indian, we're thinking we're Mataji or Prabhuji or temple president or a guru. Or, we have all of these external identities which come by way of activity. And we identify with that. But these are all, the real identity is Jiva Sarupa Krishna and Nityadas. That's the only identity. So when we practice this principle as given here, then people will understand, yes, this is something worth listening to. Devotee who sees all living entities as being part and parcel. The conditioned souls are, they're foolish. They don't know what they're doing. They're acting in the wrong way. And they harm themselves, and they also harm others. But a devotee sees that as like a child who doesn't know any better and is just making a mess. And the mother knows better and trying to straighten out the child. She doesn't hate the child, nor does she become disturbed with the child's ignorance. And she just tries to correct it. So that's the preaching mood. Preaching mood is, the non-devotees will not appreciate. There's one story where one devotee was distributing books. It was in Italy. In Italy, they have these train stations where the devotees stay by the trains. And the trains stop at the stations and people get on and off, and the train stops for 5 minutes. So during that 5-minute time, devotees run on the train and distribute books. So one lady, she went on the train, and a man was on the train. She tried to give him a book. He got really angry. He grabbed the book out of her hand and pushed her. And he pushed her, she fell. And she fell outside of the train. Fortunately, she was all right. And he just kept the book. And so, a little later on in life, that same man came down with terminal cancer. And he had kept that book. He just took it and put it in his library. And then one day he was looking for something religious. He was about to die. The doctor told him he only had like 6 months left. And so he was thinking, I have to go to God now. So he went to his library looking for some Catholic book. He was Christian. But he found the Bhagavad Gita that the girl gave him. And he started to read it. He got curious, and he read the whole thing, and he thought, this is wonderful. And then he came to the temple. He knocked on the door, and guess who opens the door? The same girl he pushed out the door. But as soon as he saw who opened the door, he fell flat, dandavats, in front of the doorstep, completely humbled by that situation. So, this is the benefit of preaching. Sometimes preaching doesn't happen immediately. She didn't take any offense against him because he abused her. She understood, this is what it's like to preach, Sometimes it's difficult. When Krishna sent the cowherd boys to beg from the Brahmins, they came back and said, Krishna, they're not paying any attention to us. They're simply absorbed in their puja. And Krishna said, that's the begging business. Sometimes you win, and sometimes you lose. So that you can expect that when you're preaching. Sometimes people will be very receptive, and sometimes people will be the opposite. One devotee was telling his experiences in book distribution one time. Book distribution marathon discussion we were having in Mayapur. And he was telling how he was distributing books in one European country, and he had about, like 9 different titles of different shastras with him. So he meets one girl, and he gives her a book. She says, oh, these books are so important. Yes, I've read them before, and they're so nice. I really love these books. They really help us understand about God. And what you're doing is so wonderful. Thank you very much. You're helping so many people. She started praising him and just glorifying him. And she thanked him. She gave some money, took a couple books, and left. Now he's up there. He's a little, he got glorified in such a nice way. So he's out distributing more books, and he goes to one man. He tries to give him the book. The man doesn't want it. So he's a little enthusiastic to try to give the man a book. The man said, "Let me see that book." He grabs it. He said, I know these books. It talks about the good qualities of people who worship the Lord, and I can see you don't have any of these qualities. So here, you read the book. You need it more than I do. Haribol. So yeah, the man could sense the devotee was exhibiting some pride. And as soon as he saw that, he immediately responded in that way, yeah. So yeah, when you get praise, sometimes it's like you have to be careful. When you don't do anything wonderful, it's easy to become humble. When you do something and people say, "Oh, thank you very much, that was very nice," like that. And as His Holiness Radhanath Swami said in one lecture, soon as you do something and everybody praises you, you should know you're in a dangerous position. And you can develop this pride, and then that pride can cause you to develop this false ego, and then that could lead to offenses. Then you start committing offenses. So yeah, this verse is, Mahaprabhu has glorified this verse as the best of all verses. And we have to practice that. And when it's coupled with enthusiastic devotional service, it's very pleasing. But humility is not something external, it's something internal. It may manifest externally, but really it's internal. It's what is the consciousness of the person. What is the mood of the person, not so much how they're exhibiting that mood externally. Of course, it will come out like that, but sometimes a person can be like fire and chastising and just preaching really strong. That could be another symptom of humility, because it's time, place, and circumstances like that. Okay. Any questions or comments? Yes. Is back there.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for wonderful class.
I'm in trouble now.
Maharaj, I have a question regarding humility, because we were discussing regarding humility. So, in last you quoted Maharaj also that we are in dangerous position when somebody glorifies us. But internally, Maharaj, we always want to be in such kind of dangerous situations. So, one instance I remember that once, I just wanted to understand, once what happened is we did one program, huge, there was around 1,000 devotees, and myself and my friend, we did everything we did, and we cultivated them and all, and then we organized one program wherein we called one senior devotee, and then one of our senior god brothers were there. And then out of, that, okay, he is very senior, let us call him. And then we called him. And then the senior devotee started to glorify, the senior devotee who came started to glorify our god brother, who didn't have anything to do with that program. And then he took over the mic and started to, tell that I empowered him and all. And then I was thinking, what is going on? And then I was not feeling good also.
So... Yeah. You were supposed to get glorified and you didn't get it, right?
Yeah. Then,
but he glorified someone who didn't do anything.
Yes, Maharaj.
That's because you were expecting that. That's why Krishna did that, just to show you, to put you in your right position.
So Maharaj, my question is that even after reading, hearing, and all this, so many times, but still that, yeah, later on, I realized that with knowledge, okay, this should happen, I should be put at place and all. But for that 1 2 days, it was very disturbing. So my question is how to, because this 2 days time was very bit long, and I was not feeling good. So my question is, Maharaj, that
If you blame him, then you're not seeing the picture clearly. It's Krishna did that. He allowed that person to act in that particular way. So the question you should say, my dear Krishna, why? And then you start to open up the answers of why. One who sees me and everything in me is never lost in me. It says, Prabhupada says, no, the Bhagavatam says, one who finds fault with the perpetrator of a wrong activity also shares in the same reactions of that person who commits the wrong activity. That person is simply an instrument. That's all. So if you blame that person, you might have to think, why did that happen to me? What is it about me that Krishna is trying to teach me? Is he trying to teach me humility? Or is he trying to teach me? You have to start to reflect and maybe also ask other devotees, what can I learn from this situation? Or why did it happen in the way it did happen?
makes sense, Maharaj.
Yeah, there's a story where Srila Prabhupada was in Vrindavan, and devotees had met this really nice bhajan singer. He was from the outside, he wasn't practicing. But he knew all the nice bhajans, and he could also sing the songs that we were singing. So they wanted to bring him to Prabhupada to impress Prabhupada about how qualified, how beautifully he sang. And so they brought him to Prabhupada during one program, and they said, Prabhupada, can he sing? And Prabhupada said, yeah, let him sing. And he was singing, but Prabhupada could sense that he was very proud. And so he tells the devotee, tell him to stop. And so they went over there and they told him, stop singing. So he did. And then Prabhupada looked at one person, some brahmachari, who couldn't sing at all. He couldn't carry a tune. And Prabhupada said, you sing. And he was singing. Prabhupada said, so nice. And the devotees were going like, that bhakta who couldn't sing, he had devotion. This other person sang beautifully, but there was, he was trying to present himself as, a great singer. See the difference? So it's the devotion that counts, or it's the humility that is the catalyst for devotion. Without humility, there's no real devotion. So sometimes that happens. Sometimes there'll be an event happening, and then they'll broadcast the event, and you were part of the event, and then you look to see what they said about you, and they mention everybody but you, I do that sometimes. I look, wow, they forgot me. All right, Krishna, I know you're just trying to purify me. So yeah, it happens like that. But devotee who is really deep in the mood of bhakti will become disturbed or unhappy when they get glorified. They don't show that unhappiness, but they feel uncomfortable. So yeah, things like that. You were due something, but you didn't get it. Yeah. And that happens in marriage life a lot, right? You expect something from your wife, or the wife expects something from the husband, and it doesn't happen. And then somebody gets disturbed in the relationship. It's hard to live without expectations, but the more you can come to that level, the more happier you are. Because people who have expectations, a lot, who live for expectations, they're never happy. Because the world doesn't work according to our program. The world works according to Krishna's program, or through the material energy. Sometimes people think, sooner or later I'll be able to fulfill my desires. It's not working now, but I'll get it someday. A devotee just depends on Krishna, that's all. My dear Lord, if you want me to do something wonderful on your behalf, then it's your mercy, that's all. And there are many devotees in our movement, who did wonderful things, made thousands of people devotees, opened up temples, distributed immense amount of books, and they're not even practicing Krishna consciousness anymore. They did powerful services, but they fell down. They became proud. They committed offenses. As soon as you become proud, you should realize that you can easily commit offenses because of pride, because you think you're better than others or more qualified than others. So a devotee, now, sometimes a devotee will be encouraged in their service when they get some recognition. Like you just get and they don't look for the recognition, but when they get it, that's an encouragement, and they want to increase their service like that. And sometimes we do that. We praise someone or encourage someone, and that helps them to continue on and doing more and more service. But the devotee doesn't look for that, but it happens automatically. When you look for it, then you think you're the doer. Krishna says, Kartahame iti manyate. You're not the doer. So you're lucky. You got special mercy.
Yes, thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah, mercy. There, yeah.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj, can you tell that story of how Devi Shakti Mataji gave you the book and how you came? I guess Devi Shakti Mataji only. And also, she also gave book to Devamrut Swami Maharaj. So can you tell both stories?
Let's see. What was her name again? Oh, Deva.
Sri Chaitanya Chandra Das.
No. Well, that's okay for brahmacharis not to remember Mataji's names. Devi Shakti.
I guess. I don't remember it.
And yeah, Devi Shakti. She stays in Vrindavan. She's been in Vrindavan for about 35 years. Yeah. You want me to tell that story? She said, here's a bunch of books, give me all your money. I said, all my money? I don't have much. Doesn't matter. Whatever is there. That was in New York in the 1970s, 1972, I think. Yeah. So, yeah. Those devotees in those days, they used to take a real personal interest in people they met. Not only to give them a book, but to find out more and to have more contact, to follow up, to get more books. And they were also trying to get as much Lakshmi as they could. She asked me how much you have in your bank account. Wasn't much. Deva Swami had much more. So yeah, we both came by way of Daivi Shakti. Yeah. She even came to my house and cooked lunch for me one day. She really wanted to, I don't know, she really wanted to make me a devotee, not just give me a book. You know, and it was special mercy. She was very humble. Sweet, gentle, humble, but she knew her lines really good. She knew what to say. Her and her partner, she had another girl who was even better than her. They would get immense amount of money, because in those days, early days, we were always looking for money, because we were just, Krishna consciousness was just starting, and the temples needed money. So one of the main reasons for book distribution was to get finances so we could preach more and to maintain the temples. So a lot of book distributors were focusing on getting big donations. But now it's not so important. Now it's more important to get the book out. Yeah.
Similar is with Devamrit Maharaj also. Like same stories with him also, similar?
I don't know all the details, but yeah. Same scenario. Get to the bank account. I was poor, so it didn't really matter so much. We have to quit at 9:30 because I have to leave here at 10:30, so we don't have much time. So this will be the last question. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, we see that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has told us this principle of humility, but at the same time, for preaching's sake, he took sannyas in the Advaita Sampradaya, so that that was honored. So sometimes we see that for the preaching's sake, this reputation also matters.
For preaching's sake, reputation matters. Yeah, but reputation will come automatically. You can't make your own reputation. What he did was, he took sannyas in the Bharati Sampradaya, because Bharati Sampradaya was more, the Mayavadi Sampradayas were more prominent than the Vaishnavas. So in order to, have a platform for preaching, he didn't see much of a platform. And he also did that, and there's another reason, which I think is a really important reason. He wanted to convert all the Mayavadis. Later on, he spoke to Prakasananda Saraswati and made 60,000 Mayavadis into Vaishnavas. So Mahaprabhu's mission was to reach as many different types of people as possible. And he could only reach the Mayavadis if he was a sannyasi. And so he took that role as a Mayavadi sannyasi so he could really convert the Mayavadis. And he did it in Benares. Yeah. And that was a preaching strategy. But how did he convert them? Not by philosophy, by his humility. He attracted them by his humility and by his beautiful golden color. And that allowed them to inquire more about him, and then he started to speak more. And he started to glorify not the philosophy, but the holy name. Yeah, it was a tactic. But it's also how devotees function. Yeah. Their humility is very attractive. Thank you. I do have to leave at 10:30, so I have to take some time and end the class now. So thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Sri Sri Radha Vrindavan Chandra ki jai. Gaurnitai ki jai. Sri Sri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani ki jai. Hare Krishna.
His Holiness Chandramauli Swami Maharaj ki. So I'd like to express our gratitude for this blissful and enlightening association of Maharaj. After Maharaj came in the last month, he has a very hectic tour to different parts of Maharashtra. He also went to Belgaum for the 3-day Rath Yatra festival. Then he came back to Mumbai. And Nityanand Triyodashi was a very packed day. After the evening Abhishekam, the kirtans were going on from 8:30 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. And Maharaj was there all the time, leading or chanting or dancing, and couldn't come out of the temple hall till 10:30. The kirtan were going on. And still Maharaj, to bless us, he came next day to Pune on 4th. And then he has been a part of all the functions, especially singing kirtans, reading classes. And now he's proceeding to Mayapur. So we are very blessed by Maharaj's wonderful association. And yesterday's question answer session and today's question answer session and the Brahmachari class have been very uplifting and very elevating. So I'd like to express our gratitude to Maharaj by once loudly chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna. His Holiness Chandramauli Swami Maharaj ki. Srila Prabhupada ki.